going to introduce you to them. How's that for being different? Okay. And of course, right off the bat, Gerald Stenson, and you're from Plains. This is Melvin Flaney. He's a physician's assistant here and has a recovery.
Awesome.
Tell me what you call a recovery clinic. Okay. Pastor Combs, you know. Diane Isaac. Dick Unruh. Dean Portis, city manager. Did I say that right? That is my husband, Ralph. And Rachel Cloudis, who is the director of the health department. Christine McFeeder, who is, I don't know the official title, but you're the county extension.
K-State Research and Extension.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Dennis McDowell, who I've talked to on the phone and didn't know who he was, but he's pastor of a church in Ballard. And Bruce, I can't remember my man back there.
All right.
And I have talked to everybody here, so they have a little bit of an idea. So it's not just totally foreign.
Yeah.
Just a little bit foreign. And this is Scott Powell, and he's going to talk to you about the Hope Center in Pratt and introduce his helpers here. And I'm going to just let him do it because I'm making a mess of it already.
All right. Okay, well, we can get started, yeah. My name is Scott Powell. I pastor the Abundant Harvest Church of the Nazarene in Pratt, and moved there 7 years ago, a little over about 7.5 years ago now. This is Mike McGovney. Mike is the pastor of the Cunningham Christian Church and the Pratt First Christian Church, and has been in the community there well, he grew up in Cunningham, so you've been around there for a long time. And this is Jeanette Gator, and Jeanette is our paid staff director of the Hope Center, but all three of us were founders of the Hope Center when we started putting this thing together. And so what I thought I'd do to introduce this is really tell you what the state of affairs were in Pratt prior to the Hope Center, because I think you'll see a lot of similarities. There are common struggles that every community has. And that's what we kind of walked into. So we have a ministerial alliance in Pratt. I'm sure most communities have something similar. And ministerial alliance, I remember there was a benevolence fund, and we had Lenten lunches that contribute to the fund there. There were a couple other donations that might come in to fund that, but it was usually around $4,000 to $5,000 that we did with benevolence out of the ministerial alliance. Is that about right? And I remember a constant conversation about how we dispersed those funds. There was no good system. We're all pastors, and so we have huge hearts, but not always a lot of practicality on how we do things. So there was constant conversation about who the money was going to, and we found that often 70 to 80% of our funds were going to transients. And we didn't know anything about the world of transients. We were being taken advantage of often with transients. Not to say that all transients are crooked, but some of them play a system. They're in survival mode, and we found out from our sheriff that some people might come through Pratt, hit every church and the Ministerial Alliance, and walk out of Pratt in a day's time with $250, $300. That's pretty good. So that kind of started a conversation about, well, what are we doing? We would really like to see a better effort for community of Pratt. That's what we're there for. And what could we do? Well, there's already agencies and resource groups in the community. So one of the first things we did is we started researching about how many and who they were and what they did. And they cover everything from any group that deals with some kind of service to the community, to people, from schools that do free and reduced lunches, to counseling of students, to breakfasts, all those kind of things are services, to the medical world with the hospital there in Pratt, our clinics, our rehab centers and our nursing homes, all those combined, to all the other organizations that are state-funded or federally funded, from DCF to even groups like Crisis Care. And then you have all your charitable groups that range from religious groups to just good-hearted people that are trying to help. And you know, you got your recovery groups. Just there's a lot of them. Well, we counted up over 100 in Pratt. We didn't know most of them existed, and we're pastors that often are frontline people who get phone calls, and we didn't know what was there. And we thought, well, if we don't know, how do individuals know? How would an individual who's going through a difficult time know who to call? And beyond that, if once you dig into the storyline of somebody in need, you'll find out that it's not just one issue, that they'll have multiple issues that would require multiple agencies getting on board. So we thought that what we need is something more coordinated. We need to make it easier for people in need to find help, okay? So we started reaching out to our resource groups, and in June of 2013, we did a dinner just to explore an idea that we had, and we invited all the resource groups, and we didn't know who was going to show up, but we had over 65 resource groups show up, which stunned us. It was a full house because they brought multiple people. Great conversation about what we could do. And most people, I mean, we began to kind of categorize areas of need and how they responded, and they were looking at each other saying, I didn't know you did that. I didn't know you were here in town. We had Salvation Army in Pratt for years, and most of us didn't realize we had Salvation Army in town. Now, they didn't have an office per se. They had a reach into the community, and they were giving funds, they were giving fans, they were giving blankets and things like that. We didn't know about that. And so it was a real moment of aha, you know, of discovery for a lot of the groups and for us. And we asked the question, what could we do to coordinate this entire thing? We had an idea of one place, one person. One place to start, one person who understood the landscape of the resource groups that could get them started. Okay? We didn't know how we were going to do that. So we went and we began talking to the churches. And that was the first hurdle that I think we had to go through, was unifying the churches in a common mindset. Now, we were all part of the Ministerial Alliance, but to say that we were unified in an approach is very different. So what we were asking for them is, how many churches have some kind of benevolence fund or mission of the church? Most churches said, yeah, we kind of do. We do this. Some of them did great things. Some of them did small things. And we thought, well, you have this heart for it. But none of us pastors, I mean, I know firsthand, if someone were to call me and they had this huge issue, I would try to help. But then I'm probably stepping away from that unless they're part of my congregation. And I'm praying that the Lord's going to carry them through, But I wasn't going to spend hours backtracking that and checking up on them. I certainly didn't have time to verify their stories. They always have huge stories. Sometimes there's some verification that needs to be made. We didn't have time for that. So this is what we sold the churches. Let's come together and let's do a shared resource ourselves. Let us come together as churches, and we're going to create a place, and that's an extension of all of our churches. So it's an office that all of our churches are sharing that cost for. And then we're going to have a staff person, that all of our churches that are partnered together are sharing this staff person. And this staff person is going to be qualified and capable and commissioned to do all that background checking, verification, and to know what's going on in the community and be that first person. So we view, as pastors, the Hope Center as a shared office space and a shared position. So when we went to the churches, we asked, what would you guys give on a monthly basis towards this? Well, a lot of them saw immediately that that's going to go a lot further. That $150 a month is going to go further in this endeavor than it was for us individually. So we did that, and at this point we have 15 churches or 13 churches. 13 churches that are fully partnered with us with contributions that help us pay for this. Now, the second thing we did is we needed a place. And Mike remembers as we were looking at places, and we really had no idea what this was going to look like. I remember Mike and I went to a place, where was that? Kathy's Closet now.
It was not the VFW, the
Oddfellows. Yeah, the Lodge of the Oddfellows, yes. Yeah. And we stood in there, it was a big open space, and I remember Mike and I standing in there thinking, this is much bigger than we had anticipated. We were thinking an office. And I remember Mike and I just all of a sudden kind of becoming overwhelmed with the idea that what if one of the missions of the Hope Center could be that we create space for charitable groups that you know, space and utilities is one of the things that is costly. But what if we provided that for them, cut the cost for them? And we're looking at this big space thinking, well, that's possible. I mean, you could almost envision it. We didn't end up getting that place. So we thought, well, I don't know. And then a local dentist of ours, Dr. Hopkins, had bought a building on Main Street. It used to be the old Cox building. It's a 3-story, basement and 2 stories building. And his idea was in 5 years to renovate it towards a dental suite. But he said, I can't touch it for 5 years. So what if you guys try this building out and see, and maybe you'll find out you don't need that much building. Maybe you'll find out whatever. So we talked about it as a committee and thought, well, it seems like this is what God has handed us right now. Let's just deal with right now. So we got established in there. He said, you can do anything you want in there because I have to gut it anyways. So we had church groups and individuals, and I know Mike and I spent a lot of hours down there, and Terry, renovating, building, creating space. Well, now that we had space, we had multiple groups come in. So these, yeah, this yellow, these are the current groups that are inside the Hope Center right now. The Agape Health Clinic is a free health clinic that happens once a month, and it's a tremendous program, has 3 doctors involved, and a number of nurses in the community, dentists, and that's been a big thing. We thought that was going to be an outdated program when the Affordable Care Act came out. By the way, they didn't change anything. In fact, I think the needs for Agape have grown. The Affordable Care Act has a specific person. What is Lisa's position? She is she's called a navigator, and she is employed by the hospital, who loves the Hope Center because and this gives them a place where people are coming. So Lisa Hart is in there. She's a navigator. If you're looking to get into the market for insurance, she's the one who understands how it works and the timing of that. So you have that one person to go to, also in the Hope Center. You have Hope Center Emergency Fund. This is probably the day in, day out general things that Jeanette takes care of. I'll explain how we do funds in a minute. The Circles program is a national out of poverty program. Their office there, we have just hired on a paid director for that, but they've been in motion for 2.5 years. On their 5th class, that's a tremendous program, and I'll kind of explain where that comes into play, but that's what we call our 3rd tier. We do emergency food. Now, there are different food agencies, and so there was a time when we pulled all the agencies together and said, what do you do? We found out where there was overlap. We found out where there were gaps. One of the gaps is that first emergency, first night, second night for a 2-night thing, because we have the county food group that does a big box that will get you through maybe a couple weeks, and then we have hot meals across the street from us at a Free Will cafeteria. So we just do, just get you through the night. One of the ladies on our board is the nutritionist and dietitian at the hospital, so she helped us come up with a good meal plan that could be cold or heated, and gave them what they needed for a couple nights. All Saint Paper Pantry, one of the churches did this in their church, had very few people come through. They do it now at the Hope Center, and that's everything from those things you don't think about, from shampoos and toothpaste and toilet paper and paper towels, cleaning supplies, soaps, those kind of things. So they take care of that, but it's their mission, but it's done in the Hope Center where people are coming. And we have other things that are donated by the community to us that we disperse for them. Prescription assistance program helps people find cheaper options to prescriptions, costly prescriptions. And Jeanette is also the director of that. And they do that in the mornings. So technically our hours are 1 to 5 in the afternoon. But she's in there Tuesday through Monday?
Monday through Friday.
Oh.
From 9 to 11:30 and 1 to 5.
So she's down there a lot. They have saved, I have on here, they have saved the community on that $55,000, over $55,000 that would have been pushed to the community and trying to help people get these costs. Either it stabilizes costs, or they go and they find grants, or there's all kinds of different programs they use to get people prescription. SHIC, you know more about SHIC.
Yeah. SHIC Volunteers comes in. Plan D is renewable every year. If you're 65 and older, you understand Plan D. It is a Medicare help for prescription drugs for the elderly. And they recommend that if you, not elderly, over 65, if you have Plan D, they recommend that you review it every year so that you can get the best cost for you and the best coverage. Mm-hmm. And that's what the SHIC program does for that. I think last year we did right at 250 people, and I don't know exactly how much we saved. $162,000 for individuals that, either their premium went up and they didn't like it, or the coverage they didn't like, so we helped them enroll. And that's from it's coming up October 15th to December 7th.
Mm-hmm. So some things that we do are funds related as far as disbursement of funds, and some things we're helping people save, or helping the community save funds by having qualified people who know how to find the cheaper, better option. The couple other things, Salvation Army was in our community. Again, really all they did was the bell ringers during November and December prior to Christmas. And so we had the bell ringers, and that amount of money stays in that community. The majority of that money stays in the community. Well, Salvation Army realized what was happening, and so they gave us power over the Salvation Army funds. And so we dispersed the Salvation Army funds for them. And since we've done that, it's also increased. Last year, we were getting $1,100 a month out of Salvation Army to give to people. This year, they're down a little, and so we're looking at doing our own mail out in November called Season of Hope. And the nice thing about, now that we've been in the community long enough, benevolence funds for us, 100% given to us goes right back to the community. It's 100%. And so there's no administration cost, because our administration cost is covered by all the churches. The building is, we had 5 years there, and he just gave it to us to use for free. The utilities, I went to the city to ask if the utilities would consider a waiver, help us out. And I remember that night I stood there and I told them what we were doing. And one person said, well, yeah, we could probably do a waiver. What did the cost of utilities used to be at that building? And they said, it's like $250 a month. And he said, well, if that was a few years ago, it's probably gone up. Let's go $350. So they're going to waive $350 from our utility funds. And I was about ready to step down, and somebody says, well, wait a minute. What if it's springtime and they're not using a lot of utility? Why don't we just do a donation? So then it went up to a donation of $350, so we were guaranteed $350 per month. And then somebody waved their hand and said, that doesn't seem like very much. We can do better. This is a good program. By the time I walked out of there, it was $550 a month that they were giving us to help pay for costs. Well, that covered all of our utilities and a lot of incidentals, office supplies and things like that. So the city has bought into it. Now, this is the fun thing, that I get to go and talk in front of the city every year as an update. And we help people out with their utilities constantly. That's one of our charters. But we have saved the city from unrecouped bills to the tune of $8,000 to $9,000 a year. So their investment in us gets paid back to them and more. They didn't know that going into it, but this has been something that we help everybody's costs stay down by keeping everybody current. That's been really helpful. And one of the things our city did is, instead of letting people amass a few months behind, they said, we're not going to let you. We're going to, in the 1 month that you're behind, you have 2 weeks to make up for that. Well, a lot of people panicked, but what it did in the long run is it made it manageable for us. If somebody came in with an $800 bill, there wasn't a whole lot we could do with it. But if somebody comes in with a $150 bill and says they say I'm past due, I can help with a $150 bill. So that's how the city and us kind of got involved together. County commissioners have given money to us to help things along. The most recent thing that we have is Workforce One. I don't know if you've heard of that. They and Kansas Works, federal and state mandated and granted program to get people into employment. Number one answer to most people's problems coming in the door is they need a job, a better job, or another job to make ends meet, okay? So Workforce One is going to be officed in our facility 1 day a month right now, probably will increase, but they're accessible to us at all times. And already people are kind of lining up to get an interview with them, and because they do assessment, they do training, they work with the employers, they work with everybody. They're a phenomenal group. And they've got job shadowing programs where the state will pay you. So if you have a business and you want to help mentor somebody, it's not on your dime. You can help train somebody. They'll end up with a certificate and looks good on their resume. You may turn around and hire them, or they've got something in their pocket now to go and say, this is what I know how to do. So the really good program that we're really excited about. Just started that this month. Any questions so far? We're throwing a lot of stuff at you, I know.
So you're willing to grow different. Have you ever considered CASA?
Yeah.
Because that's volunteer.
Yeah.
It's not for profit.
Right. So what we do with all volunteer groups, all charitable groups or whatever, is within our bylaws is we are not seeking to overtake any group. We're just a hub. We're a coordination system. They run their own program, and as long as they fit within, we have a partnership, which is we understand each other's values, and we can work alongside each other. We might not share the exact same values, but we can work alongside each other. And then we have incorporated groups that need to have shared values. So that's within our bylaws, but we want to work with anybody that's out there working with people. So Jeanette refers constantly, and they're referring people to us constantly. And Jeanette, within 3 years, Jeanette is the first person on their phone dial, if they have somebody come across from them. Because again, somebody comes to their office, well, they're very specific in their approach to helping them, but they hear the story and they realize there's a lot more going on. And so a lot of times they'll say, start at the Hope Center. So we get them our way, one way or another. They'll end up at the Hope Center. But we work alongside all these groups. As there's not a group we don't work alongside with unless it's just not something we would agree with.
We have K-State Extension who actually has been doing that Plan D stuff.
Yeah.
So they're doing things, so connecting with them.
Right.
One thing, if I can, one thing I found out since I've started talking to people about this is what I thought was true, that I'm learning that it is true. We have so much of this is already here. I was talking to Christine this morning, and the things that she has set up where she's interacting with people and trying to teach, cooking or apparel or life skills or all of that kind of thing, she is already doing. So we don't have to
Recreate it.
We don't have to invent the wheel. We just have to make sure that people know that whatever need they have, is in the community. And she told me this morning, sometimes she only has 1 or 2 people, which is frustrating because it's a lot of work for 1 or 2 people, but maybe there might be 10 people that don't know that it's available. And when we start interacting in our center, someone comes in and asks for assistance, the goal would be to also make them aware of what other things are available so that they're not just living in the same cycle all of the time.
Right.
And
Yeah, absolutely. If you got the brochure, on the inside on the left, you'll see a 3-tiered approach. So from the beginning, we had this understanding we're going to get people coming in that are kind of different levels of crisis. Now, I'll say this. We've learned that everybody comes in our door, it's a huge crisis, okay? From their point of view, it's a huge crisis. The world's ending, you know. And so, you know, you're going to process this story, and Jeanette and the volunteers do a good job processing the story. They do an application that just helps us get a little bearing on the situation. But they're listening for specific things that are telling us how big a crisis it is and how quickly we need to mobilize. So if there's children involved, if there's elderly involved, if there's disabled involved, we tend to move a little more graciously and quickly. But this is the question we always ask people when they come in, because most of them are looking for financial assistance first. That's their first hurdle. We call that Tier 1. So they have this hurdle. Before I can address these other issues, they're going to turn my electricity off, or they're going to, they're going to kick me out of my rental. And so, if the Hope Center is involved in the solution, almost all the people in town now give a grace period because the Hope Center's involved. So if we call the city and say, hey, such and such is sitting here, you say they're going to turn them off tomorrow, and they say, okay, if you guys are going to work with them, we'll give you till tomorrow or a couple days or something like that. So we can take the crisis edge off a little and say, hey, we're working with you. We got a little grace period here. But then the next question is what can you put on the table? We talked about this a lot because we thought at first, as a pastor, we're like, oh, that seems like a harsh question. But we didn't want to just be a money tree, handing out money. We wanted to help them learn solutions and help get themselves back on their feet. Because if they're going to sustain this fix, if they're going to let it propel them into a better tomorrow, they've got to learn how to be part of the solution. And so we ask them. If they come in and they say they got a $200 bill, and we say, what can you put on it? They'll sit there and scratch their heads a little, and they'll say, I've got $75 I can put down on it. Okay, so we write that $75, and that's your contribution. This is what you're going to do with it. Now, to take the pressure off Jeanette, we don't want her to be a bullseye, be the person that says yes or no or how much, because that's not fair to her. She has an advisory committee that's part of our board that she sends an email out. So we tell people it's a 24-hour turnaround. You're going to tell us the situation. We're going to spend 24 hours trying to come up with our part of the solution. Okay? So she'll send an email out, and we'll come back and we'll consider that and improve it, or we'll say no. Sometimes we say, we've done this, we've gone down this road before. I think this person needs a different solution, and so we're going to refer them to a different agency, like Pillar, which is the Prairie Independent Living Resources, if they're disabled or something like that. We're going to get more people involved. So that takes a lot of the pressure off Jeanette to be the singular person that makes that decision, and it lets us take some of that urgency off of the issue. Because if you can just give a little grace period, sometimes just letting people calm down and take that edge off helps a lot. So that's kind of how we deal with Tier 1. Tier 2, this is when we start seeing people more times than once, Now, you would have thought, I really thought when we started, we're going to see multiple people. We're going to see frequent flyers come through here. We do have a few frequent flyers. Not near as many as I thought there would be.
The process doesn't allow them to come through as often.
Right.
As it did before. The process before, before the Hope Center was in place, the Minister Alliance was, we had our benevolent fund. They could come to us and they could ask for money to help with it. We had a limit of $75. So if you had a bill of $350, we're going to give you a little token of $75 and say, sayonara, you're on your way, and hope you can figure it out. And that's what really bothered us. We weren't fixing this or maybe giving a solution to the people. But they would get that $75, as Scott was saying, they would get that $75 from them. Then they may go to Scott's church. Scott didn't know they'd been to the Minister Alliance. And he may give them 25 out of his church, and they could give 30 from ours. You know, by the end of the day, they've got enough to pay their bill and go out for supper. And some did that.
It's a lot of work.
And so that's what we were expecting might come through the Hope Center too. They think they can do this. They're going to be the frequent flyers, so to speak. What we've done with that is that the churches that are partnered with the Hope Center, they all know that if somebody comes to my church and they're out of town, or they're just somebody off the streets, or they're a transit or whatever, we refer them to the Hope Center. We know that's the first thing it's going to be. Now, if there's somebody from our own church, we sit and visit with them, see what we can do, and if we as a church can fix it, great. If we need to go and ask the Hope Center to help for the two of us, so there's another place, another resource for the churches that can be strapped a lot of times as well. So, you know, we don't have as many frequent flyers because they know the Hope Center is the first place they go to anymore. And unless they're new to the community.
Plus they keep track of where you've already been, how many times you've been helped.
That's exactly right.
Well, we even made decals for the windows of our churches that say we are partnered with the Hope Center, and it stopped within 1 year, the church to church to church to church process. But it also let us just feel a lot more secure and affirmed in the money that we were giving towards the Hope Center, that it was being used to help people, and we knew that there was a system there, you know. So we have policies on how we put people up for the night. We have, you know, the police department, highway patrol are all partnered with us, so they have our vouchers. If they need to put somebody up for the night, they do it, and then, you know, that's part of our system. But they're vetted through the police department. Transients, you know, we sat there and we asked the police department, what would you like us to do? They said, well, we want everybody vetted through the police department that comes into town asking for assistance. We might send them back your way to the Hope Center, but we'd like to know who they are if they're asking for help. It's, you know, it's obviously not illegal to walk through a town. But once you start asking for assistance and going, then the police just want to be aware of what's going on. So then we're kind of involved. Second tier, you know, when we see people who, you know, giving you $150 or to help you on your bill, that might get you over a speed bump, but you got other issues. Or we've seen you a couple times. So now we might do a budget report with them. We'll sit down with them and talk about their finances. They bring in bank statements. And I kind of thought when we decided to do that, people would kind of get up in arms and say, hey, that's personal and you have no business. How many times has somebody turned that down? None. I'm really shocked that how many people just really aren't offended by that question. They're really seeking help. So they'll sit down and 9 times out of 10, they just don't make enough to cover what their bills are in life. So there's a little discussion about what we can do to cut bills or things like that. Or something has happened, a medical bill, tires burst out on the car, or something like that, an unexpected bill that has thrown them off because they live so tight to the wire that those things are just major crisis. So that's something we can help them get through and move forward, and that's why we're excited about Workforce One, to help people understand, okay, there's some employment options you haven't even thought about, and maybe getting involved in one of these programs is going to get you on a whole different tier. Third tier for us, the whole goal for us was that there would be nobody in poverty, nobody hungry in Pratt, nobody seeking a job in Pratt. Now that's a huge goal. We understand that. The world of poverty is a unique culture, and we're always learning more about it. And one of the best national programs is Circles, and they do a great job. It's intensive. It's a 12-week orientation, and then there's a graduation from that. And then they're set up with, essentially, they call them allies. They're mentors or just people from middle class to upper class to have conversation with them. These people they're not allowed in their homes. They don't give them money. They meet and they talk, and they build a relationship. So we're on our 5th class of that, and the statistics of people who, after orientation, it's an 18-month journey. The longer you stay in that 18 months, the higher the statistics say you will be out of poverty. So that's one of the reasons we're highly vested in the idea of circles. Is we don't want to just help people exist into the same sphere of living that they've been living in, where it's this crisis after crisis. We want to see them get on their own feet and begin to be self-sufficient and productive in the community. So Circles is the ultimate for us to get people to that point.
Are you running Circles through Hope?
Yes, and for us in Pratt, it's called Circles of Hope. So,
One of the things with the poverty level thing is that you've got these people who come in and they'll fund the programs, they may be working through Circles. Circles has been fantastic for us. And there's the cliff effect. They'll reach a certain place where they're in poverty, then they'll start to gain a little bit more income, and they get to a certain level of income. And when they get that level of income, this particular service will no longer service them, so they drop out. Maybe it's the food stamp program. Then they'll go. So now they're back to square one. They're kind of wavering in here. Okay, I can't afford them with food. So do I quit the program and go back on food stamps, or what do I do? And so that's where we've got to come alongside them with the different organizations, the different groups that can help them understand, maybe through what you do with the K-State, is to help them learn to do better meal preps, better processes that way, better foods to buy, cheaper foods to buy, and still maintain a healthy diet, these type of things. The paper pantry can maybe come in there as helping them out for a while until they get to the next level of funding, to where they can again meet their needs themselves. And that's, I think, people who don't live that way don't understand it. Mm-hmm. If you don't live in the poverty situation, you don't understand that. My wife, when she was married, got a divorce, abusive situation. No matter about that party, she and her 2 kids moved into the projects in Denver, Colorado, and it was a place where you didn't really want to be. Only white family, nothing against it, but there's people from all over the world, different families in there. And they were excited when they could go to King Soopers and buy 10 hot dogs for $1 that were already steamed and cooked on a bun, because that meant they had 3 meals for the next week. Now, that's not the mindset for us. The people in this room, that's not the mindset of how we survive. They were in survival mode. And your poverty level folks are in that survival mode. So if Tier 1 is great for the emergency situation, Tier 2, the budgeting, but Tier 3 is what's exciting for me. Mm-hmm. Because it means these folks are actually able to build themselves and grow themselves into a better living situation all the way around. And that's where the businesses can come in involved, the churches and whatever, to help make sure that your Boots program works. And with that, mm-hmm. Because, guys, it's different. It's just a different world out there. That's what Scott says. We're learning. We're learning all the time, more and more about the poverty community because of this. Yes.
I came across a certain element of, we might say, the poverty group people in our community. It's to do with health insurance. How do you get to pass that cliff? Because they stay in poverty, because then they get free health insurance from Medicaid. Mm-hmm. As soon as they get up there past a certain point, they're going to lose that. Mm-hmm. I'm just.
Why would they?
What do you guys do to help in that area? And what does the Hope Center have available?
Yeah. Well, one, we don't encourage people to live in that level and that way of thinking, because they can't just keep coming back to the Hope Center indiscriminately.
Right.
So, while we're definitely, we want them to come anyways, but we may not help them financially the next time if we don't feel like it's going to get them somewhere. That's part of the advisory council's job with her, is to ask the question, how does this help them move forward? Mm-hmm. Not just...
I'd say in Tier 3,
right.
They doesn't want to get that higher paying job, because then they will lose their health coverage.
So what happens with Circles, though, is they have to go through an interview. So really the only people who are even interested in Circles are willing to navigate through that cliff effect, because they really don't want to be in a poverty level. There's 2 different types of poverty people. There's generational poverty and situational poverty. Situational poverty, those people are more prone to want to get back out of it. Generational, they think this is the way life is. So trying to convince them of of a different way of living is difficult.
So if they don't want to come up, do they then get kicked basically out of the Hope Center?
Well, okay, we had to take the pressure from ourselves and say, we're not superheroes here. We're not trying to fix everybody's situation. So if some,
The people that you feel necessary.
yeah, well, we want to be there for everybody, but generally, the ones who are actually looking for help is different than people who are looking for a handout, right? So we don't really encourage a system of handout. We're looking to help people advance. And that takes, 3.5 years now, 4 years of us telling people in our community, this is what we're here for. If you're ready to move forward and advance, man, we've got all kinds of options for you. If you want to, sub-exist in this level here, you can come here one time.
Be able to help you at all, right?
Right, yeah.
We have, go ahead.
Which community did you go through to see circles? Did you go to Salina or where did you go?
McPherson.
McPherson?
Right. Jeanette Siemens was our lead on that. She's on our board, and she's a highly capable person, but she did a lot of research on circles and a lot of training on that, and then founded it within us as a subgroup of our own. Our paid director is a different person, Billy, and in fact, she starts October 1st. So that McPherson.
Answer to your question about insurance, of course, the Affordable Care Act kicks in. If you make $12,000 a year or something, you can get insurance pretty reasonable on that.
Yeah. And again, the Hope Center is the place to go for that now. So while she's in there talking to Lisa, or this person's talking to Lisa about the insurance options for them, Lisa's hearing more of the story, and she's going to kick him back out to Jeanette and say, okay, you need to talk to Jeanette now about this and this and this and this. So that's nice, having certain things under the same roof. That's been very, very, very good for us. Pratt's not a big community, so it's not like we're spread way out there.
One thing I'd like to throw in here, the representative from Workforce One, I have an appointment with her on October the 9th to come here and
Great.
see how that would work, because there's a lot I don't know about it. I heard about it from Jeanette and got online and started checking into that. And then also there is a Hope mentoring program that they will train people to be mentors for people that are on government assistance already. So there's a lot of stuff that's available. We just need to start coordinating all of that.
Well, and the climate of the state and government is changing constantly in how they're dealing with poverty. One of the things that our state came out with was, what do they call it? Where if you were able to work, you only had so many months of assistance. And when that came up, we had a lot of people coming up to us all of a sudden saying, I need help because I just got my assistance cut because they went past that date. That they had so many months of going out to find a job. If you're physically able to, the state said you have so many months, but you're supposed to go find a job. Well, before they didn't have that, so they were existing on that paycheck from the government. So things change constantly. Again, it's nice to have in one house, one place that kind of is navigating through all those changes, constantly keeping up on those changes, knowing those answers. And that's what we try to, that's why we pay them, and that's why we give them that place to do that from, is so that they can do that. And that's worked very well. One of the numbers here that's always amazing to me is we started off with $4,000 or $5,000 given by the Ministerial Alliance to the community, most of which went to transients because we didn't know any better. Now, last year at the gala, we had $32,284 from the Hope Center. That wasn't through other agencies, given to the community. And that's done because of monthly donors. We have people in the community, a number of them who give $10, $20 a month to that. We have grants that come in constantly. We have groups that do fundraisers on our behalf, like the 4-H group, and just give money. We love to be able to tell them 100% of that goes into our benevolence fund. That's going to be used to help people because our other costs are taken care of. As far as the building, we just had a conversation not too long ago with Hopkins, and Mike and Terry did that, and Dr. Hopkins about the building, and they said, we kind of need to know what your plans are because we got a nest egg of money where we're trying to protect in case we got to go buy a building. And essentially he said, well, I'd look horrible taking the building from you now. But he said it in jest because in reality, there's no parking there for him or anything. And he said, it's going to be better for me to just build a building. And so he goes, tell you what, let's continue this contract of ours for 20 years. And so essentially, he's just giving us the building. And that's been just, that's how the community has seen the advantage of the Hope Center, has rallied behind it. You talk to people in the community, whether it's a resource person or just an employer in the community. Hope Center is well known, has high reputation, because we're doing what they were hoping to see done, but we're doing it in a smart way. We got a system that works, you know.
One of the things that when Scott seems to keep saying that it's funded, it is funded, as he said before, by the churches. And I don't know how many churches you have in your county. But if you can get the churches on board, like our church in Cunningham, we're not in Pratt County. Cunningham is in Kingman County. For various reasons and things, I have ended up in Pratt County for a lot of things over the past 16, 17 years, because I couldn't get Kingman to work with us on different things. And so we've been into Pratt County. Even our churches in Kingman County, and ours is $100 a month. That's what we give at this point in time, and that goes to paying Jeanette's salary or things like that. Again, we've got the city has given us the help with the finances. We don't have any rent on the building, so I really do highly encourage you to talk to the churches, your different churches. It doesn't matter if it's $10 a month. Yeah. If your church is able to do that, because if you're giving out right now, if you're giving out $200 a month into benevolence, but you could give $100 to this program, and then you could have $100 to do something even other ministry-wise with, it's great programs. I went down to Harper County here about 2 years ago, and I spent about 6 weeks down there, going down there every week because they were trying to do the similar thing. But the difference there is Harper and Anthony can't stand each other. There has been a rival since the late 1800s over who got the courthouse. And literally today, the courthouse is in Anthony, and Harper despises Anthony because of the courthouse being there, and they won't work together. It amazes me that they put up Chaparral High School here a few years ago. And I'm not speaking out of turn with them. This is they'll tell you this. However, I went down there because they had some people interested in this, and the first thing I did was go to their churches and try to get their churches to come together, and then go to the business leaders. They now have churches from Harper and Anthony and Attica, all three working together. Because of those three churches, those three communities working together through the churches, now they're seeing Harper and Anthony and Attica businesses coming together and wanting to do things for the same thing. You know, and the unity, it takes a lot of unification. It really takes a lot of work working together. That's why it's so nice to have all these under the same roof, because it's so nice to work together with them. And so that takes care of how we can fund what we're doing.
And I really would just really second on that. You know, we have watched over the years other groups do something similar or try to do something similar, and some of them they get the cart in front of the horse. They get the office, they get a person in there. They haven't gotten the unity yet underneath it. And so they're begging all the time for people to utilize them and refer to them, and it's just it's not working. You know, Circles in Garden City, which is a large community, Circles had a hard time getting going because they tried to plant Circles in one church, and Circles could never find people. Whereas when Circles came and talked to us, we have 300 and some people who are actually doing application through us per year. We have a lot of names. We have no problem giving them names of potential people who might be interested with it. So Circles looks at a program like that and says it works, but it works because we had the unity there first. We spent that time unifying churches and the community, but also the resource groups, because the resource groups, now we're going to have to know Jeanette. They're going to have to kind of understand that people may come through our door first and then be referred to them, that we're not competing with them. We're just coordinating that approach. That's what we say as our, as our theme here, coordinated and partnered approach to serving our community. It's just we're trying to be a hub, a first place go, Certain things that we do, we take care of a lot of those tier 1 crisis issues with financial assistance. But past that, we're referring.
So kind of where we're at, I've talked to Kiwanis and Ministerial Alliance and different people, and there's interest. There's everybody says, yeah, this is really something that's needed. So we've kind of established that, and there's a little bit of money that has been set aside to offset some of the beginning expenses. But at the point we are now, we need people. We need people that are interested in getting together and forming a board, and we need people, volunteer people, because it's already more than one person. I mean, you can't do it one person.
Right.
You just can't do it with one person.
One of the
So-
things about your board, one that I think is very unique, this started as, this basically birthed out the Ministers Alliance, but but that's not all that is there. I mean, we have the ministers folk, but our board is from so many different aspects and areas in the community, from medical to school to law enforcement to banking to young professional business, the churches.
Yeah, we were very intentional in the formation of the board. We wanted people representing a lot of different sectors in the
Yes.
community. Yes.
How many people do you have on that board?
12?
13.
13 now. Yeah, we just changed that. Yeah. 13. Yeah. Very highly capable people. I mean, very impressed. You had a question?
That was one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did you form a 501c3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. Went through all those steps. We're leaving with you guys, our bylaws. We have that digital as well, so you guys can, if you guys want to use that as a template, model that and fix it to where it will fit your community. I was telling Ann that, it only works. There's a lot of national programs too generic for communities. You guys need to, knowing what your communities are dealing with and who's here, what resource groups you already have, you might want to kind of figure out where your gaps and overlaps are and figure out, how to address some of those other issues that aren't being addressed, but then how to coordinate the ones that are already in place, But you can use that as a template, just shape it and mold it to yours and stamp your name on the front of it. That's kind of how we kind of started too. Yes?
I do have a question about the board. How frequently do you meet?
Monthly.
You do meet monthly?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
And how many is this executive advisory board that helps with the decision-making for some of the?
There's 5.
Five.
They're all on the original board?
Yeah.
Okay. So like
Yeah.
an executive or an advisory?
Well, we just call that the advisory council, and what we ask for is who can respond within 24 hours to Jeanette's email. So not everybody could say they could guarantee that, but and she doesn't need a response from all of us. She just needs a response from most of us. So we all have the power to give input on that. And we also tell the pastors that are partner churches that they're kind of at-large members of the board. At any point in time, they're welcome to come in and have input. They don't have voting power, but very little of what we do actually is a voting issue. It's much more education, information, and practical application.
I did put a piece of paper there on your chair. I would love to have your contact, name, contact number. If you're involved in a group that's already doing some sort of benevolence in the county, I'm working on a resource book so that, that should all be in there. So if somebody comes along and asks, who does what,
Yeah.
we at least know that. And, are you willing to be a part of this, or at what level? Are you willing to be a volunteer? Are you willing to serve on the board? Anything, if you want to put on there, I don't want to be Don't call me. Write that on there and I won't call you. Because it's a bit of a challenge for me. I'm not really that kind of person to put myself out there a lot. So this has really been a learning experience for me.
And I would say our committee is formed of a lot of ands that can recognize the situation, aren't necessarily gifted or practically situated to do something about it, but wants to be part of a process to be built that makes things happen. So that's what our committee is, our board is, but the person who is the powerhouse behind it is Jeanette.
Yes, indeed.
I can't even tell you how much she's worth to us in the community of what she does day in and day out. She has the right heart. She has the ability to tell people truth, even when that hurts a little, but she does it with a hug. And she's incredibly smart when it comes to volunteers and all the different government agencies and things like that. I mean, we're very fortunate to have this person. I don't know if you have that person in the community. If you do, you need to take it. Yeah, you need to grab them, take them out for dinner, and you need to treat them right. And if you don't, you need to be aware that that position, that first contact person, is going to make or break your day-to-day activity.
Now, I'm going to talk a
Yep.
while, okay? As they come in the door, we make sure, I have a group of volunteers that I have, one comes in from 1 to 3 and one from 3 to 5, just for safety's sake, in case an alcoholic or a drug person comes in and I don't know exactly how to handle them. But the board has also given me a push button to the police department, which is very handy and nice that I know it. We've had a couple of situations in the 4 years that I've had to call somebody in. But the volunteers come in and sit, and then if I have some work for them to do, like put up the paper pantry goods or put up the emergency food sacks or stuff like that, they'll do that, and they'll take care of the flowers, do the housekeeping. And so when they come in at 1 o'clock, we make sure that we're a happy group. We don't want sad things happening. We welcome them with a smile and ask them how we can help them. And we have everybody sign in so that we have a name. And after they sign in, then we sit down and ask them what we need. We also have a job board there, and on the job board is people call in if they have a job listing that they need help with. And so we keep that up. And probably about 3 or 4 times, at least 3 or 4 times a week, people come in and check the job board, and we make sure that there's copies there and stuff for them. When they come in, we ask what they need. Can I have some help with my electricity bill? And I said, well, yeah. If I recognize them, that we've helped them before, I'll say, have we helped you before? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I said, how long ago? Salvation Army's rules is we help, the Salvation Army's funds, we can help 1 time a year with Salvation Army's funds. So that's kind of how Hope has patterned. We will help you 1 time a month, 1 time a year. Excuse me, did I say month? Yeah. 1 time a year, excuse me. I like to lie. 1 time a year. And after that, if they come in more than 1 time a year, then I get out the budget form, and we go over the budget form, and then I send all this information to my advisory board.
It doesn't mean that we absolutely won't help them again, but generally speaking, they know this is not meant to be a pattern.
So if we figure out if they're paying $120 or $130 for cable, we kind of suggest maybe they eliminate part of that cable bill, or if they spend $300 on cigarettes, we won't tell them to quit, but we'll suggest, well, look at the funds here that you're spending on this. So, and then I go out to the advisory board, and they know what the situation is. And majority of the time, I don't think that I've ever told anybody no.
Outright, yeah.
Outright. I make sure I go through all steps that I can go. If it's the second time, and we figure that their budget is good, we'll probably go ahead and go the second time. And it's just that maybe the car had to have this month, or a tire or something. So we'll go the second time. Then if they come back the third time, then is when we get serious about circles. In fact, my return application on the bottom has, are you interested in circles? And I will forward their names to Jeanette Siemens, that they can contact them and get them out of poverty if we can. So that's the main thing. Somebody comes in and, well, like a transit or somebody needing a room at night. Well, the board has given me so many rules or regulations that I can give and can't give. Well, we have a little sack of goodies that goes with each room or transit, and it'll last them a day. We got crackers and fruit and pudding and stuff of that sort, and we give that to them. So one example, when we first opened, a man came in, he had high blood pressure, and he hadn't had any medicine for several months. And so Agape, as a director of Agape, was there, prescription assistance was there, so we had medicine in his pocket before he left. At the Agape clinic, and the doctors by calling, and he had. So, and this is the fun part about helping. They come in, they say, "What can you use? Paper products. Can you use
The coat.
We got coats hanging out there now. So, and we've got go through the whole things that they might need before they walk out the door. And then they'll come back the next day. They have to do the legwork. I don't send a check to the city. They have to come in, and I don't make a tip to them or give them a tip. They all always goes to the company. I go, if it's for rent, it goes to the landlord, and it goes to the city, which is the majority. Medicine is another high dollar thing. People, I can't afford my copay, and then I can switch more to prescription.
And you can do it all in-house there, which it's just amazing how much simplified and quicker that whole process is, because it's all under one roof.
And it takes a little while to get it through, but
So the hospital is so excited that they ended up they take care of our networking at the place. So,
What is the actual success rate of going through, helping you, having a job, never come back, and,
Circles would be probably the one that has the success rate, because otherwise we don't know really what level of issue. If they're a tier 1, they just have a crisis we're dealing with. So we may hear a lot about their story, but we don't know whether that was an upward trajectory or not. We're trying to put them in a position to get upward. But Circles will work with that person in an amount of time to be able to see trajectory. And that is, what is it? Do you remember?
no, I don't remember exactly.
It's like,
But they've had 20 participants graduate. So, and one of the participants was a young lady that was going to go on welfare because she didn't feel well, and she kept having blackouts and stuff. So, and she came to the Agape clinic because she didn't have any insurance and didn't have any money. So, we were about to turn it over. I brought it to the Hope board, and one of the board members says, well, let's don't put her on welfare. Let's see if we can spend more money, get her tested and stuff. And we did. And she's
so
now.
is that a free clinic that comes in?
it's built out of doctors and nurses in our community.
They volunteer, or do folks that are there?
A volunteer. All volunteer.
Turn and do different specialty stuff or whatever. How many hours are they open?
We're just open one day, probably 4 hours a month, but we can run anywhere from 24 to 30 people through that, because we have 3 doctors.
So when they make the appointment, you know what day the clinic's open, and they get on the list?
First come, first served.
Okay.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
appointments.
No appointments.
Yeah, and it can be a busy place.
And we were able to build 3 exam rooms and things right in there because of the building. They can leave their equipment there, they don't have to
Transport
take
it.
it with them and back and forth, and so it's
So they have full exam tables and everything they need in their nursing station, everything inside the Hope Center now. So that's been really nice for Agape.
Are you open for tours?
Yes, come on by.
Well, it's bigger, you can kind of picture just a
Yeah.
little bigger, but when you see it.
Yeah.
Say, oh, okay, yeah.
Well, when we give tours,
But right on Main Street,
across from the old Barron Theater, 314 South Main. But yeah, I'd love for you guys to come by and check it out.
What night did you go?
We meet on the third Tuesday, and it's during lunch.
11 o'clock.
Yeah, from 11 o'clock to 12.
Anyone in the boardroom,
Yeah, we'd love to have you guys come in and sit on the board meeting. We just had a couple people sit on the board meeting last time. She always makes snacks, which is her other gift, is cooking. So, we do well.
You guys, if I picked up on this, got cigarette stickers like on the front of the church.
Yeah, we made those decals.
So somebody shows up, church is closed or whatever, but there's a decal.
There's a phone number and an address on that decal to get them there. You know, just like your community, it is walking distance about from anywhere. So we're centrally located. We're right smack dab in the middle of Pratt. And then there's the phone number there. Now, we did have a question, since we're open from 1 to 5, Monday through Friday, what do you do if somebody comes in the morning? Well, Jeanette's first response is, can you come back at 1? Because she needs to protect the different hats that she wears. If they can't, she'll take care of it, but that isn't the norm. If it's an evening or a weekend, we don't give her number out. We don't give her number out. So it's given to the police department. So the police department will then know to call, and one of the guys on our board is also the chaplain of the police department. So either Terry will get a phone call or I get a phone call if it's a situation that is a true emergency. Otherwise, everybody in the community kind of knows we just got to help them get along till Monday when we're open. Again, we're taking the edge off a crisis. So. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
any other questions?
I have here, if you're interested too, this is from our we do our Hope Center Gala, which is our annual report to the community, and it's a celebration night. So this was done in January. We always do ours in the end of January. But this gives some of the statistics and numbers on the back and tells you a little about the supporting churches. But this information on the back is always impressive too, if you guys want to grab something like that. Or call us, email us if you have more questions. We'd love to come back. If you want to set up a time with pastors to kind of hear more pointedly from pastor to pastor about why this works and why we did this way, we'd come back down for that. Thank you. We just want to help you guys get going if you guys are headed that direction.
I think you're congratulated for accomplishing all this.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, this is my message in it as a pastor. We had a moment of sitting there in the Ministerial Alliance, and there was we can't do that. And this is only, we were thinking really small. And the question came up, well, what could God do if he got up to the batting plate? If God swung for a home run, what would that look like in Pratt here? And then all of a sudden our dreaming went huge, and we're like, well, we would like to have our own building. We'd like to have our own director. And my hair just went up on my neck again, because that's what God ended up doing in Pratt, is giving all those things that we had never even thought were a remote possibility until we let God go to bat for us. And so that was a real learning moment for all of us, as even pastors in the community, of don't start small. If you start small and dream small, you'll probably get small stuff, But if you're going to invite God to be part of it, man, let him swing for the fence.
People from Monterey on the mill and use it all the time, so that people, know what the huge benefit sometimes. But like your house is Pratt, but you got some of the country members that might be able to drive them over, or, I mean, they can't.
Transportation sometimes is an issue. If you're a pastor in a community, sometimes the pastors pick up some of that slack of getting people to the Hope Center. We do busing. We move people around quite a bit through the bus system.
City has a bus system, and typically utilized, and the city gives us some coupons that we can get out and get into opportunities.
So if Meade is the hub, the smaller communities or adjacent communities would have to decide, are we going to pick a solitary place that we're going to funnel people to and help get people to? There's a lot of advantages of having one single place. You can maximize a lot of your efforts and funds in that place. I think that's it.
Yeah, any other questions?
Yep.
Call us.
Email, call us.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Did you say your last name was Michelle?
Yeah, no.
Christine.
I have ragamuffin.